Today I'm going to be talking about KSI and him ducking Dillon Danis. I already made videos about both these people in the past. Make sure to check out those ones about KSI and Logan Paul, as they also include Dillon Danis in those and talk about who he is. Watch those for more context on who these people are if you don't know who they are already. But to start, Dillon Danis and KSI were supposed to have a boxing match on March 29th of this year with Darren Till and Darren Stewart as the co-main event. Darren Till and Darren Stewart are ex-UFC fighters. They also had people like Chase Moore versus Roman Fury, Tyson Fury's brother with a 4-0 record, as well as others on the card that I do not know. But this card was actually postponed due to KSI allegedly being sick. KSI announces the postponing of the event on March 21st, 8 days before the event, in a video on Twitter saying this.
Hey everyone, I'm going to try and make this quick. Me versus Danis, it's just not going to happen March 29th, man. I've tried my hardest, but my body has legit just given up. I'm currently in bed, taking antibiotics, trying to recover, but I'm struggling. I'm coughing up greenish yellow all the time. My sinuses are hurting to the point where I need ibuprofen every day. The tension headaches right here that I'm getting are more painful than you can imagine. I'm using Sudafed daily. I've tried sparring and training and my body just feels weak. My stamina is just falling off a cliff. I can't even taste right now or smell. Basically, I've been ill for almost 3 weeks and it's just not got better. You know, I've had doctors come around to try and decipher what is going on. And honestly, I've never been this ill for this long in my life, and I hate it. I feel useless, and it's depressing. I feel like I've let so many people down. I haven't been able to post any YouTube videos to help promote the fight because I've just been feeling so I'm just sick of being sick, man. And yeah, I'm sorry. I wanna move the fight to another day because, you know, I still want to knock out Dillon Danis, and yeah, I didn't train this hard for nothing. Either way, I want to say sorry to everyone at Misfits, everyone at The Zone. I want to say sorry to the Sidemen for not being in as many videos as I'd like to be. And most importantly, I want to say sorry to the fans.
So the card has been postponed, and since the recording of this video on April 6th, there is no new date. Dillon Danis has responded and called out KSI on Twitter multiple times over this situation. On top of the memes he posted about the situation making fun of KSI, he made multiple tweets. To start, we'll go on the response of the video, quote tweeting it saying, "I remember my first cold." He went on saying, "What's the point of the fight? KSI won't promote it because Logan blowing up behind the scenes, and DAZN is doing the same because of him." Which I can see being the reason being canceled in the end, because Logan and KSI are weirdly close nowadays. I'm sure Logan really isn't happy with Dillon Danis getting the spotlight again and fighting KSI for probably, you can assume, a huge amount of money. Dillon Danis also says, played in a full charity soccer match 2 weeks ago, has, quote, been sick for 3 weeks, which also is true and a good point. KSI played in the Sidemen charity soccer match that they do yearly. This was on the 8th of March, which doesn't really add up to KSI's story, because if you truly are too weak and too tired and all this, you shouldn't have been playing in this in the first place, but also you shouldn't have had the energy or really anything and looked very different out there on the field. Dillon Danis also talks about the fighters and fans, saying, "I feel bad for every fighter on the card and the fans who bought tickets. Logan Paul, step up for your boyfriend who pulled out with the sniffles, and let's save this show and everyone's time and money." He also called out Deji later. Logan Paul call out was interesting, not a bad choice. It was kind of ballsy, but basically the call out on Logan Paul is impossible. Logan Paul is definitely taking performance enhancers since he's in the WWE. That's what they all do. So he's not going to pass that test, and this fight is already invalid starting there. But it's also on short notice, and he'd have to cut a bit of weight, I would assume. But it does suck that fighters are now stuck indefinitely till they decide a new date, which means all the work they did and preparing for the fight, on top of spending a bunch of money for the camp, hotels, and everything else, and also with the fans as well that are booking flights or booking hotels to see KSI and all these others perform in person, they now don't get to see that, which really sucks for them. And now this card has the chance of never happening, maybe being postponed, or maybe all these fighters go on to a different card or something of the sort. They should just put Darren Till as the main event and just took off the Dillon Danis versus KSI fight, and if people wanted to refund them, refund them. And it's also just a pretty good main event in general. Screwing everyone else over is a weird move to do because you are supposedly sick. This also shows off KSI's narcissistic ways, because you're canceling an entire card and screwing over fans and fighters because you are the only one that has to pull out. Go on, Dillon Danis tweets the symptoms of taking anabolic steroids, which some of the symptoms of taking them are depression, headaches, anxiety, trouble concentrating, and insomnia, lack of appetite, decreased sex drive, fatigue, joint pain, muscle aches, nausea, vomiting, weakness, decreased blood pressure, abdominal pain, diarrhea, weight loss, and drug cravings. KSI, at least in the video saying that he had to pull out of the fight, said some of these symptoms, such as, the headaches, the weakness, the fatigue. Although these are common symptoms for about any sickness, it's also still a possibility. I think people have tried to call out KSI in the past for doing PEDs. I don't know what other proof other than this they would have. I also don't believe the doctors, quote, don't know what's wrong, because, dude, you are a millionaire. You probably know some of the best doctors or go to some of the best doctors. They know what's wrong. They probably told you. You're just not saying because you know it's either fake or you're doing something wrong like steroids. One of the tweets that got KSI's attention was Dillon Danis tweeting saying, KSI girlfriend reveal, where KSI responds with, if you want a number on your head, go ahead. Which is a odd response as KSI isn't really about that life, never has been, never will be. And on top of that, it's just really corny, because why would you also admit this online? Dillon Danis responds with, worry about beating the common cold first, boy. You're not going to do anything. KSI went to a private school and acts like a roadman. Chill out, gangster. You got famous playing FIFA. Logan already learned his lesson. This isn't Top Boy, you little private school Brit. Be careful who you're threatening. With a picture showing a article, Logan Paul details NYC altercation with Dillon Danis. Quote, one of his boys pulled out a gun. So there's more proof already of Dillon Danis being a thug, or at least being around them, than KSI. I feel like KSI has been made fun of thugs in the past, probably during the lead up to the Swarms fight, I would assume, if this ever happened. Dillon Danis also goes back to the girlfriend thing, kind of hinting at who she might be, saying, how are you a multi-millionaire and your girl got an OnlyFans? He goes on to show a poorly aged tweet of KSI's from 2023, talking about how he doesn't pull out a fight. KSI responds saying, I haven't pulled out, you cretin. It's postponed. Your punishment is just getting delayed. Black thumbs up emoji. Dillon Danis says, although DJ, you pulled out, ended the whole event. Little League Baseball games get postponed, not multi-million-dollar fight cards. Which is a good point. He did pull out. Even if it's postponed, he still pulled out. There was no situation where he didn't pull out. Even if it's postponed, you still pulled out. It's still your fault you pulled out. I don't know where he's trying to say that he didn't pull out. I guess the reasoning in KSI's mind is because, like, oh, the fight card isn't canceled completely yet, so I did not pull out. Just because the card is postponed doesn't mean that you didn't pull out. You pulled out of the fight, no matter what the reasoning is. To make this worse for KSI defenders, KSI announced that he is streaming himself commentating on soccer matches on the 24th of March, just a few days after calling out sick. Dillon Danis responds saying, we're supposed to believe this dude is deathly ill. He said he couldn't make videos promoting the fight because he could barely speak, but he can commentate. There's also a clip from a stream where he did get caught not being sick. This is probably during the commentating stream. Then when he got called out by the chat, he acts sick and starts fake coughing.
Break good times, come on! Da, 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 da. Celebrate good times, come on! I fixed it! The uncle fixed it! Okay, let me calm down.
He doesn't sound sick or look it at all in this stream. Like, he sounds just fine. Then on the 29th, KSI is seen at a Usher concert. Dillon Danis responds in multiple tweets saying, you can't make this up. KSI faked the sniffles. He's a scared boy. I was told he couldn't get out of bed, and he's out on the night of the fight. KSI was never sick. Logan made him pull out. I called it from day one and no one believed me. KSI canceled the fight to go to an Usher concert. I'm done. Messed up. If the roles were reversed, I'd be getting mauled by you guys and the media. If any UFC fighter pulled out of a fight due to sickness and was seen out at a concert the night of the fight, it'd be an automatic cut from the company. He makes very good points here. If the roles were reversed, everyone, and probably including myself, would make fun of Dillon Danis heavily. And if the roles were reversed, the fight would be canceled completely. Dillon Danis would never get another shot to fight KSI. KSI wouldn't allow it. He'd make an excuse on why not to fight him. But because it's KSI, he's going to get away with it. Dillon Danis posts a clip of KSI's close friends, the sidemen and such, the group he's a part of, talking about the situation, and they say this.
Gosh, I'm still bad, Dillon. Take a week off. get back to full health.
No, you never know.
You just never know, right?
Yeah,
and
that
it's
is
like
it.
if you're in the mindset of being in that like training mode leading up, if you go out of that, then to step back in like 1 week before.
Yeah. The game is the game.
Yeah.
We keep it moving, keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Dillon Danis took this into the real world, supposedly by buying a driving around ad, but it was just a bad picture at KSI, just on it multiple times, and this was going around London. The last tweet of his apologizes to the people saying, "Sorry guys, KSI couldn't recover from the common cold for all of April to reschedule the fight. Shrugging emoji. Deji and Mike Perry declined the fight to save the show, plus many others. It is what it is. We move on. Swords emoji." Seeing Dillon Danis box either of these options would be pretty cool, but it sounds like we are not getting a quick reschedule, and there's still no reschedule to this day, and it's been probably about over 2 weeks now. It's getting closer to 3 than it is 2. I really do feel bad for the fighters most of all, and hope that they got compensated as well. Dillon Danis is now focused on his MMA fight against Tony Ferguson in the GFL on May 25th. So now this fight card is probably going to be postponed till June or July, I would assume, if Dillon Danis does not take too much damage. Wade Plemons, a combat sports commentator, boxer, and YouTuber, said this on Twitter. Also, for all the stuff that was said about Dillon Danis, quote, pulling out of the fight, because he pulled out of the fight, I think, last time in 2024 or 2023, whenever this was going to originally go down, credit where it is due, he was going to show up. This event was being carried promo-wise by him, and I get that KSI is sick, but I gotta give Dillon some credit here. He was ready to go. White flexing emoji. KSI actually had a breakdown over this tweet from Wade Plemons for whatever reason, and here's the clips.
That tweet is specifically to credit Dillon Danis for going on Helwani's show and trying to promote this thing, for flying, by the way, to the UK for 1 day to do that press conference, then flying back home to New York. That's got to be a task in itself. Trust me, I hate flying to the UK. For me, it's 11 hours there, 11 hours back, time zones. It's not great. He performed, I thought, well in the face-to-face. You had some great one-liners. He was trying, even with the whole weird, you can't speak about specific things in the contract, which I still don't know how we're at that point where Dillon can't talk about certain things leading up to a fight. And I get it. There's some personal things that, again, we're going to get into in a second. But Dillon trying to promote, even with the parameters on him, I thought he deserved credit for that. And he was going to show up, at least this time, so credit where it's due. Somehow KSI took this as a shot at him. And somehow, 2 years later, to the day where KSI said to me, you and everything you stand for, he still has not learned to not act emotionally on Twitter without even reading the tweet. He quote tweeted that and said, "Shut up, you annoying waste of oxygen." Ironic for the man that's laying in bed with the cold and the sickness to be talking about the waste of oxygen doing something like this right now. Surely your knees hurt so much at this point from sucking off Jake Paul and his team all the time. Give it a rest. OMG, you think I want to be in this situation? Is wrong with you? I like how he capitalized the last part so that we could all understand he was yelling in the tweet, right? He was calm at the first part. The last part, he was really angry and yelling. Again, I have to say this is a grown man, by the way. So anyway, listen, when you take personal shots at me, I'm gonna respond, and calling me a waste of oxygen, I don't know how he hasn't learned 2 years down the line, but the formula is take a breath, think about it, consult the advisors, potentially give up the Twitter to management like you did before, and then if you still want to tweet at me, have a go at it. But he still hasn't learned, and I responded this way. I said, LMAO, you just never learn, do you? Always so emotional you can't even be bothered to read. No one said you wanted this. As a matter of fact, this tweet had nothing to do with you. I was giving Dillon his credit for doing his job and being locked into this fight. I guess he thought that I was talking about him in the first part of the sentence where I said, people talk about Dillon pulling out. He did say that, but that wasn't just him. That was the entirety of the internet, me included. I was kind of taking a shot at myself. Then I said, no idea what Jake had to do with this, but today was the wrong day to play that card. And the reason I said that's because I dropped this video today. Jake Paul is delusional. I mean, it writes itself. And again, at the end here, I just wanted to make sure if we're going to throw personals out that we do it correctly. And I said, the only person wasting oxygen here is you, pal. Slap another nasal strip on and give it a rest like you should have weeks ago. Maybe then you'd be fighting this week. Now again, I didn't want to be nasty with JJ. I have no reason to. But when you come at me, again, over a tweet that had nothing to do with you, I will respond. That's sound advice I'm giving him. More so than it seems anybody in his own camp even gave him, because when he was sick over these last 3 weeks, all someone needed to do was be like, yo, you need to rest. I know that means missing out on maybe a week of sparring and training, and that's pretty tough. I get that.
Although people might not like Dillon Danis, and especially might hate him in the upcoming month if he beats Tony Ferguson, cannot deny that this man has eyes on him. He has good Twitter fingers and good at making people mad. He has past experience in fighting and is younger than most of the competition KSI and Jay go or want to go against. This is something that people want to see, and people like myself want to see Dillon Danis fight, whether it is GFL, whether it is MMA, or whether it is boxing. I want to see what he can do. I want to see what he can do with the next few years in the combat sports world after being basically inactive for so long and just doing jiu-jitsu for the most of his time. He does most of, if not all of, the promotional work, mainly through Twitter, which is kind of impressive other than, of course, getting interviewed by maybe DAZN and stuff on their channels. He mainly does most of the promotion from Twitter, and this still succeeds. And then, of course, KSI makes his videos on the topic, but, I mean, Dillon Danis still brings in a different audience. Wade brings up in his videos talking about the situation that KSI, of course, is emotionally headed and egotistical, but on top of all that, that is the reason he is failing. KSI thinks he is too strong and has too many commitments going on all at once, and having all of these isn't good for being a fighter. KSI is getting older, and if he wants to take boxing seriously, he will have to focus on that for a few months at a time at least. Here's the clip.
That's a big part that I want to spend a lot of time on this video about, is that KSI is at a real crossroads here with his boxing career, his aspirations in the ring, because what you're seeing, not only in this fight, but let's not forget, JJ also had to pull out of the 2v1 fight with Slim and AT for a hand injury. And I think that there is a growing thing that's happening with JJ and his camp and his responsibilities outside of boxing that he needs to take a real look at. And that's simple. If he wants to box, if he wants to do this, he has to dedicate fully to this. You even heard in his video, he just talked about, you know, he's sorry to the fans. He's sorry to the sidemen for not being in as many videos. He's sorry that he couldn't promote the fight. He's sorry about a lot of these things, and I think he's being genuine there. But the problem is he's trying to do it all, and he's getting older, and his body is breaking down. It doesn't make any sense to be doing the sidemen charity game 2 or 3 weeks ago while he says he was still sick, and then trying to go and spar and train at the same time. Your body just can't handle it. You need rest. Anytime you're sick, the main thing you need is rest. And I almost guarantee you that JJ did not take any rest. I almost guarantee you that throughout these last 3 weeks, he was still trying to train and spar and get ready. And listen, I love the commitment to that. I think that's a mark of a fighter, right? To be able to mentally lock in even when you're sick, even when you're tired, and go train. Problem is, it's counterintuitive to what he needs to do. He should have taken 3, 4, 5 days, rested, and he may have still been able to have this fight. But when you're doing sidemen charity, when you're flying to Qatar to do the whatever soccer match that was weeks before that, or a week before that, and then trying to fly back, then doing sidemen charity, then doing sidemen videos, then training twice a day boxing, then going back home and doing more sidemen stuff, and then you got an appearance for Prime, and this is the problem that JJ has had. I know he has this Ironman mentality that he wants to do it all, but you just can't. And it's up to him to make the decision. Does he want to box solely? Because it's going to take 2 or 3 months of full commitment. Nothing else going on. Just boxing. And I know that you guys, you're fans of JJ's. You're probably not going to like that, because that means he's probably not going to be in as many sidemen videos. Probably means he's not going to be doing all the extra stuff on his YouTube. And that's kind of the sacrifice you make when you box, especially as you get older, and especially as your body starts to break down and doesn't recover as quickly as it did in your mid-20s or early 20s. That's just a part of life. And I say this earnestly. I don't say this to take any shots at JJ, even though, again, a little emotional, so you have to word it correctly or he's going to get on Twitter and have a hissy fit, because as a 32-year-old man, it seems like he hasn't grown up much.
And it's a good point. A lot of YouTube boxers that are smaller than KSI leave their channels for like months at a time or weeks at a time to train. KSI, other than Jake Paul, are the only 2 actual YouTubers who have any carry or any weight in bringing more people into the dying YouTube boxing scene. If you give me a Chase D'Amore like main event for a YouTube boxing card, I don't really care. I'm not watching it. I really only want to watch a full card that has the interesting main event. With YouTube boxing, it's going to be full of casuals. There's not going to be many people who want to dive deeply into this. The YouTube boxing scene is dying and has been dying for a long time. And whenever you're KSI and you're doing all of this stuff and you're out in public after calling out sick, you don't just hurt one event. you don't just hurt the fighters and fans, but you hurt all the upcoming events and the reputation of YouTube boxing by making more and more mistakes like this. People are going to start not wanting to watch this. The people are now going to be done and don't really care about the card. The hype is dying more and more for YouTube boxing in general. And if you cannot reschedule the card and have everyone on it in a valuable time or in a reasonable time zone, then you need to just let this card happen without you. You have a fine co-main event that will do perfectly as a main event for, DAZN and such. To win this off, I want to say that I really love combat sports. I know that I said this earlier, but I really do want to see Dillon Danis perform again. I said in the past, Dillon Danis clearly only went into the Logan Paul boxing match with the intention of getting attention, money, and a submission. To me, it seems like KSI ducked Dillon Danis and screwed over a bunch of fighters for whatever reason he ducked Dillon Danis. Maybe he just, maybe he was sick. Maybe he did overwork himself too much and he's getting too old to be doing all that. The card should have went on anyway with Darren Till as the main event. It would have been more entertaining than KSI anyway, most likely, as we have seen KSI fight very poorly. KSI is only going to get worse and worse reputation, which is of course much deserved, but still, it's going to hurt not just him, but it's going to hurt YouTube boxing and everything else around him. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below about this situation. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, it is linked in the description below. If you like this video, I do others just like this on locales, internet dramas, and more. Big projects are on the way. Wings Drama Part 2 videos on the way, like an update on the situation, as well as other bigger videos in the future. But in the end, I'm PERK30, and keep God close.